Hello sports fans, welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 9 UFL power rankings. So, briefly recapping Week 8, the Panthers beat the Showboats by a score of 24-18. The Stallions defeated the Roughnecks by a score of 35-28. The Battlehawks beat the Defenders 26-21. And finally, the Brahmas defeated the Renegades 20-15. So getting into this week's rankings, at number 8, we have the Memphis Showboats. They lost again, as they lost to the Panthers by a score of 24-18. They're now 1-7 on the season and have lost 7 straight games. Now, there was actually a improvement for the Showboats, as they were actually competitive, losing by just 6 points, compared to losing their previous 5 games, all at least by 15. So, I guess that is some improvement, although they still ended up losing. But the offense was decent for the Showboats. They had 18 points and 239 total yards. They also threw the ball pretty well, throwing for 235 yards and 2 scores. Then on the defensive side of the ball, they weren't terrible like they had been all season, but they weren't very good either. They allowed 24 points and 334 yards, but couldn't stop the run, allowing 161 rushing yards. But the Showboats now 1-7 on the season. They're at number 8. Number 7, we have the Renegades. So they lost yet another close game, as they lost to the Brahmas by a score of 20-15. The Renegades didn't play a terrible game, but they still ended up losing, and are now 1-7. The offense scored just 15 points, but was solid statistically, with 262 yards and 5.2 yards of play, and they were also decent passing the ball with 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. But on the defensive side of the ball, they struggled. They allowed 20 points, and allowed the Brahmas to move the ball at will, as the Brahmas finished with 375 total yards and 320 yards through the air, and did all that while averaging 6.7 yards per play. But the Renegades lost another close game. It's been a common theme with them this season, and they're now at number 7. Number 6, we have the Houston Roughnecks. They're another team that is 1-7 after their loss to the Stallions by a score of 35-28. They actually played a decent game, and on the offensive side of the ball, they played their best game of the season. They scored 28 points, which is a season high for the Roughnecks, and that's also the most points the Stallions have allowed this season. But the Roughnecks, they ran the ball extremely well, led by running back Mark Thompson, who finished with 54 rushing yards and 2 scores. But as a team, the Roughnecks ran for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns. Roughnecks backup quarterback Nolan Henderson also saw extended action for the first time this season, and he was good in his first game, seeing a decent amount of playing time, finishing with 97 passing yards and 34 rushing yards, as well as a rushing touchdown. And with the Roughnecks having nothing to play for moving forward throughout the rest of the season, I would like to see them play Nolan Henderson more, because he adds another element to their offense with what he can do with his legs. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the game Nolan Henderson played the most was their best offensive game of the season. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, the Roughnecks did struggle, allowing 35 points and couldn't stop Adrian Martinez, who finished with 5 touchdowns. But the Roughnecks offense looked good for the first time this season. They're at number 6. Number 5, we have the Defenders. They lost to the Battlehawks by a score of 26-21, and they have now officially been eliminated from playoff contention. This game between the Battlehawks and Defenders was closer than their first meeting, but the Defenders still couldn't get the win. The offense was decent with 21 points, and quarterback Jordan Teamu played an okay game with 196 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions, and turnovers have been a big problem for Teamu this season, as he leads the league with 7 interceptions and also has lost 2 fumbles. Then, defensively for the Defenders, they allowed 26 points and struggled to stop the run again, as for the 3rd straight game, they have allowed at least 140 rushing yards, and the Defenders, now eliminated from playoff contention, 3-5 after the loss, enter at number 5. Number 4, we have the Brahmas. They're at number 4 after they beat the Renegades by a score of 20-15, and the Brahmas offense had a pretty good game. They scored 20 points and gained 375 total yards, although they were shut out for the entire second half. But quarterback Quentin Dormady had a much-needed bounce-back game, throwing for 320 yards and 2 scores, and he also had his first turnover-free game of the season. The Brahmas also had 2 great receiving performances, as running back Anthony McFarland had 3 catches for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns, and his speed has been a real game changer for the Brahmas. And tight end Cody Latimer also put together a good game, finishing with 116 yards on 6 catches. The Brahmas offense has been very inconsistent without starting quarterback Chase Garbers, but the good news is they activated Garbers off the injury reserve. Now, I wouldn't expect him to play in Week 9, but that is huge for the Brahmas heading towards the playoffs. And then moving to the defensive side of the ball, they were good as they have been all season, allowing just 15 points, and the Brahmas also clinched a playoff spot with the win. They're at number 4. Number 3, we have the Michigan Panthers. They've remained at 3 after a 24-18 win over the Showboats. The Panthers' offense was good considering they were without their starting quarterback. They finished with 24 points and again played 2 quarterbacks. Bryce Perkins was solid for the second game in a row, finishing with 106 passing yards and a touchdown. Also added 55 rushing yards. Now, the Panthers, they ran the ball extremely effectively once again, as they rushed for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. But speaking of the Panthers' run game, running back Wes Hills is now out for the remainder of the season. And now, when we never want to see an injury, the good news for the Panthers is that gives Matt Colburn the lead running back role for the rest of the season. And he's been great lately for the Panthers, with 93 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. And in his last 2 games combined, he's ran for 230 yards. So I think their run game will be just fine without Wes Hills. And then looking to the defensive side of things for the Panthers, they were solid as usual, allowing just 18 points, forcing a turnover, and getting to the quarterback 4 times. Panthers are at number 3. Number 2, we have the St. Louis Battlehawks. They also clinched a playoff spot this week after their 26-21 win over the Defenders. And the Battlehawks did this without starting quarterback A.J. McCarron. Backup quarterback Manny Wilkins played for the first time this season, or started for the first time this season. And he wasn't amazing as a passer with just a 50% completion percentage and 126 passing yards, but he made his impact felt on the ground as he's a more mobile, athletic quarterback than McCarron is. But Wilkins was an effective runner, finishing with 79 rushing yards on 12 attempts, and was a big part of the Battlehawks' success on the ground, finishing with 141 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. And the Battlehawks' defense was also decent in the win. They clinched a playoff spot and are at number 2 in my power rankings. And at number 1, it is the Stallions. They've remained undefeated. The league's only undefeated team. They're 8-0 after they beat the Roughnecks by a score of 35-28. The offense was amazing, with 35 points and 322 total yards. And quarterback Adrian Martinez was unbelievable. And I think he could have just walked up the MVP, and there's still 2 weeks left in the regular season. But Martinez finished the game with 173 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. And he also added 44 rushing yards and 2 scores on the ground. That gives him 217 scrimmage yards and 5 touchdowns this week, and he now leads the league with 16 total touchdowns and has started just 5 games. Although he has appeared in all 8 games, that is just extremely impressive for Adrian Martinez. Now, the Stallions ran the ball extremely well, rushing for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns on 5.5 yards a carry. And then defensively, they did not play very well. They allowed 28 points, which is a season high, and also allowed 311 total yards. Plus, they got hurt on the ground for the first time this season, allowing 135 rushing yards. But I think the Stallions will be just fine and won't have any problem bouncing back defensively. But the Stallions have now won 8 games in a row this season and have won 15 straight dating back to last season. They're at number 1. But those are my Week 9 UFL power rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my rankings, disagree, and why. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible. And I will see you in the next video.